No one really is making this connection of the role that grandmothers have as powerful change leaders. And so we want to build out that evidence and make it specific to particular issue areas. Right now, we really think we're going to be majorly focusing on the role that grandmothers can play in climate change because it seems to have ripple effects everywhere. And there really are a growing number of organizations and movements with elders and climate change.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I speak with fascinating people from all over the world, from every walk of life, who will inspire you to live with zest. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, and my mission is to bring you optimism about aging and help you make full use of the new opportunities that only come at this stage of life. To find out more about the podcast, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. And while you're there, sign up for my weekly email newsletter, The Insider, where you will get fun and quirky tidbits about the show and my exploits, including when I went python hunting in Florida and my participation in the National Senior Games. And if you love the podcast, I'd be grateful if you shared it with your friends. Our music is courtesy of Judy Banker, who was a previous guest on the show. Find out more at judybanker.com. And our technical director is Stephen Litweiler.
Hey, Zesties. Hey, check out my brand new YouTube channel. I'm sharing Zestful Aging longevity tips, usually while hiking with my dogs. But I'm also sharing about the upcoming guest, the one that's coming up the Saturday following. And I get to tell you some inside stuff about them and what you're going to enjoy about their interview. So come on over, check it out. It's under Zestful Aging on YouTube, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Well, today we're going to talk about the vital importance of grandmothers. And my mother's side of the family are Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. And as a middle schooler, when things weren't going well, I would be visiting her in Brooklyn. And my Jewish grandmother would say, I would complain about school or something. And her response would be, "You're gorgeous." And when I pointed to my bow legs, she would say, "That's a French curve." So my grandmother loved me unconditionally, and that made a really big difference to me growing up. The Grandmother Collective we're going to talk about today is supporting a movement focused on raising the profile of grandmothers and elders as essential contributors to social change. They work with organizers to empower grandmothers and older women, and their goal is to amplify their vital role in collaborative intergenerational approaches to community and family development. Today, we're going to speak with founders Lindsay Farrell and Jennifer Hanks-Allaire, and they're going to tell us more about their plans for elevating the profile of grandmothers. Welcome to the show, Jennifer and Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to talk to you because, as I just mentioned a moment ago, my grandmother was really instrumental in, I think, just providing me a sense of unconditional love. And this is going to give people, I don't know if you remember the beautiful Chrissy doll whose hair would grow out of her head. It was the latest craze when I was a kid. And because my grandmother lived in Brooklyn, stores were closed on the weekend. And she told me, yes, I'm going to get you a beautiful Chrissy doll. And this was like, oh my goodness, my dream come true. Well, we could not find a store that was open in Brooklyn back in the 60s. And it was quite a memorable frustration for a young girl. But the point is, how important she was to me. And I know that that's really the core of what you're doing. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how Grandmother Collective came to be?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that. So Jen and I met as board members of an organization called the Grandmother Project. And the Grandmother Project is an organization that focuses on girls' reproductive health and community health and community empowerment and girls' empowerment in southern Senegal. We both came to the organization from different perspectives, but both of us have rooted in us a history of being connected to anthropology. Jen's grandmother actually is a known anthropologist, and I studied anthropology in graduate school and have a PhD in anthropology. And the Grandmother Project in southern Senegal is really rooted in the idea that in order to make big transformative change, you have to do it through culture. And what happens a lot in international development programming and community development programming, both abroad and here in the United States, is that we kind of leave out hugely influential people that are part of the story. And what was really happening, especially in youth development in this part of southern Senegal and actually all across the international development world, is that the idea would be that grandmothers were actually harmful, that they were the ones perpetuating things like female genital cutting or early forced marriage or other things that were keeping girls out of school. And Dr. Judy Abel, who's the founder of the Grandmother Project and who brought Jen and I together, really recognized that you had to really get the people that are the most influential in the community together.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw this, so the two of us met through this, but it became really evident that there were other projects out there that were thinking about grandmothers as this asset, as this role that was, a very important social role that they have played universally across the world. And so there's a project in Zimbabwe that sees grandmothers as mental health counselors and has trained them as mental health counselors.
Mm-hmm.
And in this way has really, enabled them to co-lead for change. So Jen and I, we kind of had this inspiration from these two organizations that maybe there were more organizations out there that were thinking about grandmothers in this way.
Mm-hmm.
We know they were not talking to each other because of our experience at the Grandmother Project. And we knew that by amplifying those stories, we could encourage more and more grandmothers to see themselves as powerful change makers. And so that's where we started.
And is this also, clearly you're both very invested in this from a change and social benefit part. Are you both also have personal experiences with grandmothers that have formed you?
Well, I would say absolutely. And what's been so wonderful, Nicole, in this work is getting to speak to so many people, either grandmothers themselves, but even grandmothers themselves, who are sharing really amazing and powerful stories about their grandmothers. And you start to realize that, to some extent, there's always been this incredible force and power of grandmothers that are, in many ways, the backbones of so much of our society and families. And part of it is the ingredient that you were speaking about in your beginning about just the love.
Mm-hmm.
And the unconditionalness and the strength of, being firmly present for people. As Lindsay referenced, I was very close to my grandmother, and I feel so blessed that I got to know her, and many other older women in my life. But
what's so exciting to me partially about getting to know her is she did things in a way. I mean, she was actually born in 1906. And so she, her family was, her grandparents were Victorian era and so forth. And so all of the things I got from her were really her passing on history and the way things were done. And, I could just speak on and on about her, but we would have lunch every day when I was there in her sunny kitchen chatting. And she had little department for paper clips, and she had this great order, which and sensibility. And she would collect egg cartons to bring by the schools for their art projects. And she was so integrated in her community, and just so mindful and deliberate about the sort of citizen she was in that community. And she was really a role model for me in that and many ways.
I hear you. What comes to mind is this unsung heroine that keeps coming through. It sounds to me like this really might benefit the grandmother in terms of acknowledging the influence that she's had, and also, of course, the people she influences. It's a two-pronged approach.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, we have a few organizations that set out to use grandmothers or think about grandmothers as assets to support, families in need, or the rise of depression amongst teenagers or college students. So bringing in older people, older women as elder or as mentors has been, sort of their key. And then there's this secondary effect that you actually do have a lot of loneliness amongst older people, and they're getting so much benefit out of those connections and interconnections that
really useful.
Yeah, that are really, really, I think there's a lot of conversation happening around purpose, right? And especially in the aging conversations, that people are rediscovering their purpose or realizing a new purpose for themselves as they age, or seeing that they actually maybe are even finding out who they are anew as they retire, or they think about, what they want to do for the next 20, 30 years. And I think that is one of our major learnings, is that that when people become grandparents or grandmothers, and truthfully, everyone's not a grandmother, right? Not everyone has a biological grandchild who is connected into this collective. But as they become a grandparent, there is like a sort of an unspoken purpose that comes with that grandmothers express as being like very, very special, right? It's like there was a woman at my daughter's school the other week who was telling me that it's her second chance having 7 grandchildren. And that's something that I think that, we really would love to exploit. I guess exploit's the wrong word, but to really like capitalize on that power.
Beautiful. And you see people talk about being grandparents, and like an expression comes over their faces, like they've been born again, or something is really different. And there's just this glow of delight. It's really interesting. Now, this isn't just a little side project for the two of you. One quick look at your website, that you two are doing some really important work. Talk a little bit about how you're going about getting the Grandmother Collective seen and heard throughout the world.
Lindsay, why don't you take that?
Okay. Great. Yeah. So we've just come out of a strategic planning process. We began in in what Jen calls stealth mode in late 2021. I was working full time. Jen is has a lot of projects that she's been working on. So the two of us were just testing out, would we find grandmother organizations? Would we be able to bring them together? And so we had in mind first to build a membership, and we've been able to do that. We get new members basically almost every week at this point. And so we're building out a membership organization to learn from organizations that are working with grandmothers around the world, and also to bring them together to support each other, because this has not been typically like an industry of grandmother-centered or grandmother-led organizations.
Yes.
The second thing that we really want to do is both of us have a mind towards research and evidence. And so we want to build out the evidence of the role that grandmothers play. There is some anthropological literature. There's some literature from psychology. There's some literature in the gerontologist space, but no one really is making this connection of the role that grandmothers have as powerful change leaders. And so we want to build out that evidence and make it specific to particular issue areas. Right now, we really think we're going to be majorly focusing on the role that grandmothers can play in climate change, because it seems to have ripple effects everywhere. And there really are a growing number of organizations and movements with elders and climate change. So we want to do...
We've got to talk more about that. That just sounds...
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Did I finish and then Jen can talk about it because it's her favorite thing?
Oh, goodness.
And then we also we want to build out change making tools. We want to enable like any grandmother who's sort of feeling like, I don't know what my purpose is. I want to make a difference in the community, but I don't know where to start. Or maybe even to have them recognize that role, that really, really powerful role they play, that ageism is wrong, that there's not, you're not going out to pasture, that like this actually could be a vibrant time of your life. We want to give them tools and resources. So we're building out a toolkit. We're calling it a T-kit for them to be able to work with their communities and do something small or big. And then finally, we're really all about, when we say amplification, we're about changing the narrative. And so we do have a big push on social media. We're producing articles and stories. We're just, we want to build out a podcast. And these are sort of the approaches that we're taking to grow this.
It has that great combination of what you dearly love and what you're really good at.
Yes.
I see that cross section for both of you, that you have real love for grandmothers. And that you also are, you also love you talked about wanting to see evidence-based, results, and that how does this really work? Can you please tell me more about the Climate Change and the Grandmother Collective?
Sure. I will just say there's a lot of different areas where we are finding that grandmothers have unique skills and abilities to do things. And so we're finding that in health, in mental health, in family support, in economic development, in education, and a lot of other things. But one of the big issues we face in the world right now is climate change. And it's, I think, really weighing on people in different ways. And what's really exciting about the way that older people are connecting with the issue of climate change is they're being self-aware about themselves as a group with a unique voice in this. I think all of us in our lifetimes at this age have seen climate change in our years, and there's large groups that are getting together. It might be elders, it might be grandmothers for climate action, and so there are sort of networks where they're following legislation. They're
I think of Third Act. Is that one of
Yes,
the
Third Act.
Third Act is doing that. Elders in Climate Action is a member group of ours, and they're very active and consistently gathering people that, develop chapters that are taking on climate action issues at a local and also national level. So what you're hearing for them is that there's a real sense of gathering as elders because there's a sense of responsibility to the next generation and a wanting to leave the world a better place for their grandchildren. And I think just this awareness of what they bring is really powerful. There's another organization that we're partnering with called Mothers Out Front, and they were examining the ways in which mothers had a unique place to be part of the climate change or climate action movement. And when they were starting, they started in Boston, and some grandmothers reached out and said, do you consider, grandmothers as mothers? And they said, absolutely. And there's been this really nice relationship within that organization of the grandmothers being really available and strong for the organization in different ways. And during COVID, for example, the grandmothers were really the ones who could keep the organization running because the mothers, if they had small children, were pulled in all different directions. So, there's really a unique place for elder women or elders in climate action. And there's really important ways that they can be part of upholding other organizations by being involved with their time availability as well.
Hi, everyone. You may have noticed that Zestful Aging Podcast does not run a lot of ads. That's because I'm just not willing to endorse products that I don't have total confidence in and that I don't use myself. So it really means something when I tell you that after I interviewed Dr. Bill Rawls on cellular health, read his books, and learned about his high standards for quality control, I was sold. I placed an order for Vital Plant supplements immediately. I encourage you to check out both of my interviews with Dr. Bill Rawls and hop on over to vitalplan.com. If you enter Zestful15, they will give you a 15% off of your first order. I'm really excited for you to try these products. I think you'll be very impressed. Now, back to the show. It's interesting because I'm hearing all of these beautiful things that are happening, and it occurs to me that you're restoring these grandmothers to their rightful place.
I love that. We sometimes even say, like, we want to restore the sacred grandmother. Not that we're particularly religious or spiritual, but that there is this. I mean, it's the power of love. It's the power of these sort of these intangibles that we really think that the grandmother represents. And in so many societies, for some reason, I think I'm still trying to explore and understand. We've ripped that away and become hyper individualist and not really wanting to be the multi-generational species that we actually evolved to be. And so
fighting biology.
Yeah. We are who we are because we are a multi-generational species that has lived together multi-generationally. There is something innate in everyone, which is why it's so easy for us to get everyone to tell us a grandmother story or a story of a maternal aunt or some kind of matriarchal figure that they've had in their life. So yeah, we really want to restore that position, that social power.
I'm wondering for both of you how this fills your own sense of purpose, because you're both obviously had very successful careers. This feels different.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we both can say something there. I will just say that for myself, I've always wanted to do some work in something that I thought would have impact for the world. And I was looking for a small idea that I thought could have big impact. And, frankly, there's so many different issues I hear about that affect children in the US or around the world that break my heart. And, climate really worries me and many things. But what I find with our work about grandmothers is that, they are an abundant and incredible resource around the world for so many things. And so whenever I, feel some pain about the state of the world, it really feels like such a life embracing place to leap back into this grandmother work, because I think it's so core to people around the world. And the more I do the work, the more I see the way, so many people, change makers, talk about their grandmother relationship as being so primal and really strengthening of them. People often look back at how that relationship gave them sort of core strength in really remarkable and beautiful ways. I'm sure Lynn has comments here, so I will not take all the time with my grandmother ruminating.
Well, you're talking about this positive ripple effect in so many circles, of the ripples. And I just can imagine, as we all are, if we're, awake, there's so many things to worry about and so much pain in the world. And I imagine having this to really engage in is so helpful for your mental health, to say, hey, this is really important and has great implications for the world.
Yeah. So post pandemic, I really was looking to throw myself into something meaningful. I'll tell you, I feel like I've had a lot of meaning and purpose in my life already, but I have a background as an academic, so I'm an educator. I have a background also working in social impact with a large organization called Ashoka, that kind of is the leader in social entrepreneurship around the world. And so I kind of lead with two buckets. Like I want to do work that is systems changing, that really, gets at the root cause of issues rather than, just treating the symptoms. I used to tell my students all the time, look for the systems, not the symptoms. Look for the systems, not the symptoms. And then I'm ultimately an educator. And so what I think that Jen and I have done is, you're right. I think we've maximized on our strengths, also gone after the core of the issue. And we're taking approaches as educators. We don't think that people know or recognize or remember the role that grandmothers played. And I think we also really want to encourage and hope that people that fund social change issues and social change movements and support it and design social change initiatives really recognize that it's holistic, that it has to be the whole community. Every influence needs to be part of the solution. And I'm ultimately, I think both of us are really optimists. And I don't know if Jen agrees with me, but basically every day in this work, I have a conversation or a connection that leaves me pretty optimistic that even with all of the challenges, we have enough resources to solve them.
Oh boy, what a beautiful thought that is. I can imagine that keeps you going.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So what would be the like you're only a year old and you've done so much already. What's your ultimate?
Oh, well, ultimately, we want to influence the influencers. We want the people with decision-making power to see grandmothers as a formidable force and to put funding and resources into supporting their initiatives. And that would mean that there are grandmother-centered programs at places like USAID or within, government-funded initiatives here in the U.S. We would like a lot of grandmothers to self-identify as change makers. And I think, we kind of have in our plan that in 3-4 years, we'll be having a grandmother gathering, an annual grandmother gathering, where grandmothers come together and talk about the initiatives that they're building in their communities and support each other and give each other tools and resources in order to advance that. Yeah, I think that's the ultimate. We would know that we did our job if if grandmothering was seen as a powerful skill.
People really knew what that meant.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have to say, the part of what's been wonderful and energizing is that, we really see the proof of the value of these grandmother models in their results. And it's just sort of something that no one has really taken a lens at. But the results of the grandmother programs that we look at the programs are more sustainable because they are more integrated in the communities and engage the culture, and they have stronger ripple effects because they are they're really engaging the cores of these communities. So in some ways it can sound very like a very broad hope, but actually we're sort of working quite tactically on the ground to show just how powerful these interventions are.
I just had this, I'm sure you've heard this before, but this idea of that grandmothering is more powerful than Googling. This says that talking to a grandmother or having the love and support of a grandmother and being able to ask a grandmother, what should I do? You can't get that from Google.
No, that's true. I mean, you've seen all of this in the New York Times article about people asking for grandmother advice on TikTok, and very neat.
Beautiful. Where can people find out more about you and the Grandmother Collective?
So we have a website where people can join to get our newsletter and sort of follow along with the conversation. If people are on any social media, we're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And we're happy to have a very lively following on some of those. And, it's a good place to be part of the conversation and hear from the community of people that are interested in our messages, sharing about their grandmothers, and but also looking at ways that they can take concrete actions in their communities. And we are hoping to start a podcast. And I think I would just say that we are also looking at co-creating ways that grandmother groups can start actualizing change themselves. Linz, do you maybe want to?
The grandmothercollective.org. Yeah.
So they should follow us at Grandmother Collective.
Okay.
So it's not a hashtag in Instagram. It's at Grandmother Collective.
Okay.
On Facebook, it would be Grandmother Collective.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has been absolutely delightful to speak with both of you today to learn about how, your work and how you're elevating grandmothers to the benefit of so many and so many really important social issues. It leaves me feeling very optimistic, and I really appreciate you both spending time with me today.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. If you think decluttering could help you feel better and you could use a little assistance with that, check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. It's called Too Much Stuff. And Too Much Stuff is different from other courses or articles or guidance you may have used up. We give you clear steps to deal with the clutter and the tools to help you face the overwhelming feelings and the emotions that come up when we're going through our clutter. And a lot of those emotions are just feeling anxious or guilty or just basically flooded with a lot of different confusing feelings. The course is really practical. It's realistic. The lessons are short and punchy, and they're really manageable. We're not trying to set you up for some long exploratory, super in-depth, burdensome experience. We want something really helpful for you right now. We all need help with our anxiety. So being surrounded by more calm and less chaos can really help. So now's a good time to clear out the clutter so we can focus on what's really important in our lives. So find out more at zestfulaging.com. You'll see more about this under the web courses tab. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at zestfulaging@gmail.com. Thanks so much. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.